It's been a while since I've done one of Nana Lucy's recipes, and in this video I make Welsh cheesecakes. Well, I try to, as part of the Break Your Heart Bake collaboration. Now I know Nana Lucy would have made her own short crust pastry for this, but in this version of her recipe, and I do have her pastry recipe, I'm just going to use a block of pre-bought pastry that I've had sitting in the fridge for far too long, and it really does need to be used. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to flour my table, as you can see, and just roll out the pastry to pretty much as far as it'll go, but quite thin. We don't want a thick pastry here at all. Also, because it is a short crust pastry, we don't want to do too much work to it, so we don't want to work it too hard. So trying to get it to roll out on the same side is almost an impossibility. If you want to have decent pastry, you're going to have to turn the pastry each time. So each time that you've done your one roll, you're going to flip it over and try to roll it out like you did the first time, again this way, but in the opposite direction, so it spreads the pastry out further. You want your pastry to be as even across all of it as possible, which is partly why we do the flipping, because if you kept rolling it on this side, you're going to end up with parts that are thicker than others, and we don't want that. So once the pastry is about 1 to 2 millimeters thick, or thin, you want to get a cookie cutter that is a little bit bigger than the tin you're using, so it allows for the drop. Now I'm using a shallow bun tin. Some people call that a shallow muffin tin or a tart tin, but it's got enough room for 12. This is also not a situation where I'm going to be using the leftovers of the pastry. I know, it's wasteful, but it is a bought pastry that I really just want to get out of my fridge, to be fair. So I'm not that concerned, and I only really want to make a dozen of these. I don't want to make any more than that. I do cut a couple of extra pastry circles here just in case, for whatever reason, there may be some kind of mishap, but I don't really end up using them. As you can see, I'm pulling the spare pastry out from around the cuts and just screwing it up in a ball and putting it aside, because it is going to end up in the bin. I'm not going to lie to you, because I don't want it, don't need it, uninterested in it. Would I feel that way if I'd made this pastry? Oh, not in a million years. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to place my little pastry rounds in the bun tin and just pop them in carefully. Because we've rolled the pastry here, they're going to be a little bit sticky on the table, which is fine, and that's okay. Just be very careful and loosen them off with a knife around the edge, and they tend to pull off quite easily from there. And just keep continuing to do that as quickly and efficiently as you can. As you can see, I work like a whirlwind. Now once your pastry is in the bun tin, you want to add your jam. Now I'd forgotten to get myself a spoon, so that's okay, but around about a teaspoon of your favorite jam. Traditionally it's raspberry for these little cakes, so I'm using raspberry because that's what I have. Up until the time my Nana Lucy passed away when I was 12 years old, she lived with us, and she was always been a part of our lives. And one of my favourite memories of her was sitting on her bed as a young child as she read her People's Friend. And she used to have some little sweeties, and we'd sit there and munch on little sweeties and little cakeys that she made and have a little tea party while she used to read me the stories on the back page, which in the People's Friend magazine there is a storytime page for children. So there's a written story and there was a little cartoon at the bottom as well, and she used to read those to me, and they were really nice quiet times that she and I used to spend together, and one of my favourite memories. Although the People's Friend tends to be a little outdated as far as modern standards of magazines go, if I do seem to see a copy when I'm out and about, I do sometimes still pick up a copy and enjoy it. What I really do love about their magazine is they have a different painted picture of a town or place of interest in the UK that a proper artist, not an AI artist, but an actual artist has drawn and painted, and every week it's different and it's just beautiful. Now that that's all done, we can get on with making our sponge mix for the top of the cakes. So we're going to start off with measuring out our ingredients, because this is a pretty precise thing. Thankfully, it's pretty easy. So it's either 50 grams or 2 ounces of sugar, butter and flour. And that's what I'm double checking and making sure that I have the measurements correct, as that is the little book that I've written all her recipes down in. So first off, we put the sugar and butter together, and we're going to cream those, as we have seen in a previous video, where you add the sugar and the butter together to create a fluffy, creamy mix that helps to rise and your sponge cake mix and make it all fluffy. Well, that's the theory. Also, the longer and more that you beat this mix together of the sugar and the butter, the lighter your sponge is going to be, because it's going to have no hard lumps of sugar or granules of sugar through it, because the sugar will have dissolved into the butter, so there's absolutely no granules left at the time that you do this. And you will know when this happens for 2 reasons. One, there'll be no scraping of the sugar against the bowl that you're mixing with, and the butter will become incredibly light and fluffy, and it will become a very pale yellow as well. One thing that Nan and Lucy always taught me was to check again, so that you don't make any mistakes. So always have your recipe handy, as I do there. And at this point, we're going to add in our egg. And you only need 1 for this. You're not going to break the bank. Now we're going to beat this egg in really well, because we want it to incorporate into the butter and sugar mix. But you're only going to, do eggs 1 at a time if you need to have more. I'm pretty sure that I only used 1 egg. I may have used 2. No, just the 1. It really does depend on the size of your eggs. And as you can see, on this particular day, I'd chosen to use 2 eggs because my eggs were not large. So if you do have large eggs, you only need 1 for this, but if you have medium or small eggs, you may need 2 or 3. And if you have bantams, then you're probably looking at maybe 4. But just make sure that it's all mixed in well. Otherwise, you could end up with your batter being split at this point, which means that the solids and the liquids are separated. It's not a heartbreak if that happens, but it can make it look a bit funky. Now this is where I'm adding in the flour. I haven't sifted this because I don't feel that it's necessary for this particular one. but that's okay. And then we're going to fold it in, which means just being a little bit careful. Obviously, I'm not being as careful as I probably should have been. I'm just saying, sometimes, you know, you just got to mix it in. Obviously, I've decided that that's the better option in this particular moment. But hey ho, it'll still work, okay? It'll still work. I promise. Now this one's a little bit thicker, a cake mix than the Victoria sponge batter, but that's okay. That's not a problem. It's supposed to be. Once your cake batter is done to the consistency you want it, you want to be topping your little jam-filled pastry cases with a spoon of the sponge mix. Try and keep it inside the edges of the pastry case, because it does have a tendency to do a bit of a whoops and overflow. So yeah, but you know, it is what it is, and at the end of the day they all taste the same. Sometimes they're not Pinterest worthy or, you know, pretty, but you know, this is my first attempt as well, so let's just see how it goes. So we're just going to pop all of those in and top them off. Make sure that the jam is covered so it doesn't boil over onto the top of the tin, because the last thing you want to be doing is cleaning sticky toffee jam off the side of your baking tin, no matter how non-stick it is. Now these are going to be going into a preheated 200 degrees Celsius, 400 degree F or gas mark 6 oven for 10 minutes, or until they're golden and risen beautifully. So while they're in the oven, I want to take a moment to talk about the Break Your Heart Bake collaboration, which I'm honoured to be a part of and to be invited to by Ryan over at Heavenly Hills Homestead, Monica over at Bland's Promised Lands Ranch, and Tony at Kettle Kitchen. So not only are there 30 different recipes out from different channels and collaborators for this particular collaboration for the month of February, but there is also a live giveaway on the 3rd of March at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on Kettle Kitchen's channel. Now to enter is really simple, and all you have to do is to leave a comment down below after you've watched this video, and you can enter as many times as you like by leaving meaningful comments on as many of the videos in the playlists as you want to. Now the links to the playlists are down below in the description, as is the link to the written recipe for this, or a printable and downloadable copy of the recipe for if you are a Patreon, and the link to become a Patreon is down below as well. Now our cakes are out of the oven and I've brought them out. Now I'm going to leave them in the tins because they are quite soft at this stage, and they're looking beautiful. They've risen beautifully. They look amazing. They're very, very fragile, and I would suggest leaving them in the tin to cool off for a good 10 minutes before you try and get them out. Now, after 10 minutes of them cooling in the tins, we can see that my oven needs the sack. It's fired. Let's be honest, it's completely fired. Unfortunately, these probably could have done with another 5 minutes. The sponge in the middle hasn't fully cooked, and the pastry underneath isn't quite cooked through either. So, but it's okay. It's a first attempt, and I wanted to share it with you because I want you guys to know that we don't get everything right all the time. And sometimes with baking or cooking of any description, it is going to break your heart. This didn't break my heart. This was a learning opportunity for me to understand that my oven runs a little cooler than it probably should, and it is not the greatest for baking right now, and that's okay. I don't think that Nana Lucy would be upset with this. In fact, I think she'd be quite proud that I tried it. I think she would have said to me, "You should have put a skewer in those," but I didn't. I did the one thing that I should have done, and I didn't. And that was to test it with a little wooden skewer or a metal skewer to see that the cake mixture didn't come out. But I didn't do it because I thought that the jam would come out and pull through the cake, and then it would be a big old mess. Yeah. Don't skip that step. You have to skip. You can't skip these steps when it comes to baking, because if you do, then you end up with a situation like this. Are they tasty? Yes, they are. Are they edible? Yes, they are. Did Tanny like them? Yes, he did. And he's asked me to make them again because he knows that I will get it right next time, that I won't make a mistake, and it won't be a heartbreak. So don't ever give up, guys. The message in this is don't ever give up. Just because it doesn't look perfect, it doesn't look like the cover of Pinterest or a Vogue food or whatever, you know, it's still you. Your heart and soul's still gone into it, and that's okay. So I want to take this moment to thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this one and anything else on self-reliance that I put up over the next however long I have. Give the video a thumbs up and do leave a comment, because then you'll be in to win. And also let me know if you tried this, because if you tried it and enjoyed it, I would really love to hear that. I really, really would. And I will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.